Hey everybody, I cannot believe that it is already September. I cannot. 2021 is flying by. It will be over before we know it. But since it's the beginning of a new month, it means that it's time for me to wrap up my reading from August. I have a stack of books here that I cannot wait to tell you about. So let's get started. Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you all doing today? As always, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, I hope you're safe, and of course I hope you're reading an amazing book or two or three, or however many you want to be reading right now. You read them. I have taken a few days off from work, which is lovely. It's been a while since I've just sort of taken some space. So I am, getting ready to do some stuff to wrap up the summer, start the fall. So you can tell I'm totally already in weekend mode. And I am ready to head out. I'm actually going somewhere for the first time in a very, very long time. But I thought I would take a moment and share with y'all what I read in August. So as always, get out your pen, your paper, your Goodreads, however you keep track of your TBR. If you are so able, please pre-order these books from your local independent bookstore. You know they need us every day to help support them. If you are a library user, you know what? Get your library to get you a copy. Get it digitally or in person, however your library is handling that now, so that you can read these books as soon as possible. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about, I've actually talked about a lot, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. I actually just had this in my top 8 debuts, or my 8 debuts for your TBR video that was my last video. So if you haven't watched that one, please go and do so. Those were 8 amazing books that definitely belong on your TBR. But the first book I'm going to tell you about is Ghost Forest by Pik-Shuen Fung, out from One World. This is about a family originally from Hong Kong, that when China took over from Britain regarding Hong Kong's sovereignty, this family decided to immigrate to Canada. But the father stays behind because he feels that he has a successful job in Hong Kong and he's worried about not being able to get work in Canada. What the book is really about is the father's health starts to fail and he winds up actually, you learn this very quickly, it's in the blurb, he winds up passing. And the novel is about dealing with that grief and the love and the connections in this family, for a family that just doesn't really talk about that very often. And how do you overcome that? The book is very poetic, it's beautifully written, it's emotional, and it's really just about, that inner sort of evaluation of how do you have those communications with people you love, but you've never, really known how to express it. Highly, highly recommend. Ghost Forest by Pik-Shuen Fung, out from One World. And yeah, get your hands on it, y'all. It's very, very good. Okay, so the Booker Prize long list came out. I can never read all of them. To be honest with you, most of the books are very either difficult to get in the US, not out yet, or I just can't get them in time. But every once in a while I'm like, you know what, I'm going to read this one, and this one. I either have them on my shelf and luck's out. And one of the books that is on the long list that I am very much hoping makes the short list is the amazing novel Second Place by Rachel Cusk. Now, I have read Outline by Rachel Cusk. I have not read the rest of that trilogy, and I liked Outline, but I loved Second Place. So told in sort of a, I would say like a kind of epistolary way, the main character of this is a woman who is writing a letter to a friend about a visit, or sort of she's invited this very famous artist to goodness gracious, sometimes she's invited this very famous artist to come stay in the second home she has on her property that's sort of on this moor. And she and her husband live in one property, and her daughter and her boyfriend are also there due to the pandemic, and this artist winds up showing up actually with another person. Now, we learned very early on that the woman, the narrator of the book, at one time in the past walked into an art gallery and was was really sort of moved. Her life was altered by the artwork of this artist. And so she is describing this artist coming to her home, becoming part of sort of her landscape. And their relationship is rocky. He is very, at times, difficult to deal with. This other person that she didn't expect to come. It's about family dynamics, the relationships in marriage. And it's also about sort of like just inner understanding of oneself, self-awareness, and really what that all means as you're trying to sort of get someone else to produce something that sort of will give you direction because it inspired you at one time in your life. I hope that makes sense. What I will say is that this is told in such a beautiful, just introspective way that it's very smart and driven. And by the end of this book, I just felt completely absorbed into the main character's life. I don't know that the main character, I can't remember her name because I know that she's telling the story, so I can't remember her name. But all I can remember is very much feeling like I understand this woman 100%. I think this book is freaking brilliant. So that's Second Place by Rachel Cusk. This is out now in the US from FSG. I know it's out a lot of other places, and it's currently longlisted for the Booker. So, there you go. Check off a bunch of boxes. It's very, very good. Okay, so this is probably going to be the hardest one for me to talk about because I don't know exactly what to say. But that's the Manningtree Witches by A.K. Blakemore. And this is out now from Catapult Books. Now, this was put on my radar because it won an award. And I believe that Simon Savage was one of the judges for it. So I saw it on his Instagram. I saw Catapult was putting it out, and they were kind enough to send me a new copy. And I was super, super excited. It's set in England. It's like the mid 1600s. And it's a story of like these women who are, they're just trying to get through life. They live in a town. They're sort of very poor. They do all they can to survive. And of course, gossip and people start talking and sort of this, are they witches, are they not? An event occurs, and one of the women who is is the mother of the main voice of the novel is sort of accused of putting a spell on. I'm going to use that in terms. This book was good. This book was exactly what I expected it to be, a witch narrative, people talking about other people, the ways communities sort of turn on others. Those who are on the outskirts are always the easiest people to sort of become the scapegoats for a bunch of different things, and how logic oftentimes gets thrown out of the window when it comes to this stuff. I liked it. But the thing is, once I finished it and closed it, it has been hard for me to remember much about it. And I don't know if that's on me because I did read it at a really, really busy time. For me, it was just like one of those books. I was like, I liked it. It was good. I think it was fun. But I just don't have that much of a connection to it. And I feel bad because I really wanted to love it and, be like effusive about it. But it was good. If you like books about witch trials and all that kind of stuff, I think you'll really, really enjoy this book. Very historical fiction. The main character is very driving. For me, it was just like, it was good. It was good. So that's The Manningtree Witches by A.K. Blakemore out from Catapult. Okay. Next is a book of translated literature that is so very good. And this one is actually not coming out until November 9th. So from Grove, it's Love in the Big City by Sang-Young Park, translated from the Korean by Anton Hur. That's H-U-R. I follow Anton, I think, on all social media platforms that I follow, and he is fantastic. And this is, I believe, Sang-Young Park's first book being translated into English. Yes, the English language debut. This is the story. This is what I love about this is I have read a lot of Korean fiction. You know that it is sort of one of those things at my heart, but I've never read any gay Korean fiction. So the main character of this book is this young man at the start of it. He he's gay, but, you know, very much in the closet in a lot of ways. And he meets a woman who they become best friends, and they're sort of going through life together, partying and enjoying life, and they move in together, and they sort of have this relationship where they for each other are the most important things, right? And he has come to rely on her, and they're just so intertwined. But she eventually, you know, graduates school, she winds up getting a job, she winds up meeting a man, and she gets married, and that sort of derails our main character. Young is his name. And Young he doesn't know what to do with himself once that happens. He moves back in with his mother, and he winds up actually becoming a caretaker for his mother, who is ill. She's very, very ill, sort of the ups and downs of that illness. But he's also dealing with his own queer identity, and also what does he want to do with his life? He doesn't quite know. And the book is then split into these 3 sections. First section is sort of his life with this young woman. The second is a relationship he has with a man who is very attractive. He wants something from him. He wants this relationship, but this man does not treat him well. And that relationship is damaging in a lot of ways, which we see in the future. And then the third section is about a man that he meets, and their relationship is good, and there's a lot of love there. But does the past affect the present, and what's going to happen with that relationship? I thought this book, one, paints a beautiful portrait of how difficult it is to be a gay man in a society that you aren't always free to be who you are. I also think that it paints a very vivid portrait of what soul is like. I think it was one of those books that I really understood the place and the time. And Young is he's just a complicated guy. He doesn't always make decisions that I love. He doesn't always do the things that I would want him to do, but he's really real. And his reality and his sense of realness to me really is what makes this book special. I feel like there's a lot of sections of this as, you know, people who have felt sort of like on the outside or are trying to figure out how to make themselves authentically there in everything they do. And then the bad relationships and the bad relationships that affect the good relationships, and all of that sort of coming together just is so well done in this book. Hopefully I've done it justice, because I really did love Love in the Big City by Sang Young Park, out from Grove on November 9th, 2021, translated from the Korean by Anton Her. Okay. Then I decided to go a little fantasy, urban fantasy, so set in sort of a modern time, but with the wizards and warlocks, and that is White Trash Warlock by David R. Slayton. Now, okay, so this book is the story of Adam. Adam, his father disappears when he's young. Adam has been touched with the ability of having magic, and he sort of sees things. He can see the other world. And because of this, he has a very difficult time in high school, and his older brother and his mother wind up putting him in a facility because they just don't know what to deal with him. It's not a great place. And that has really caused a divide. And he has since gotten out, at the beginning of the book, he's gotten out from the facility, and he lives with, I believe, his father's aunt, and they live a very, let's just say, a very white trash life. They live in a, what's the thing? What is the word? Motorhome is not what I want to say. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Sorry, my brain is not thinking of that word. I can totally see the picture. Sorry, David. But he is, his brother's wife has been sort of acting different. It appears that she has been possessed, and the brother has been able to see something, and he calls Adam and says, I need your help. Well, there is all that history, all of that baggage, but Adam is not willing to allow that baggage to get in the way of helping his sister-in-law, while his mom is there and all of that. And then it just becomes an adventure as David's the author, Adam's the character. As Adam tries to figure out what's going on, he gets to the town. It's Denver. It's set in Denver, which David lives in Denver. I actually met David at Booktopia Boulder way before this book came out. And I always told him I would read his book, and you know, there you go. And it has a sequel coming out. But what happens here, I digress, people. Adam winds up finding out that there's this giant sort of spirit sucking a bunch of the life out of Denver, and he winds up having to become involved with other, other races, elves and gnomes and stuff like that, in order to save Denver, save his sister-in-law, and all of that, save his family. But he also this has sort of like this family dynamic going on. And on top of that, Adam is gay and has never really had a really, successful relationship. A relationship that's really sort of bruised him was with an elf he had while he was in that facility, who just disappeared one day. He comes back. But other than that, this book is super, super fun. I will say, I'm not sure I love the title, White Trash Warlock, because I just feel like Adam is so much more than that word. And then I'm like, no, I like that David's owning that. Like, there's so much conundrum, but it is a super fun, engaging read, great world building, great magic, great fight scenes, great interpersonal relation, all of that stuff done very, very well. And the second one, I think it's called Trailer Park Trickster. Don't quote me on that, is coming out fairly soon. So if you want to read number 1 and read number 2. So I highly recommend it. David, I hope I did an okay job explaining your book there. That was a lot of stuff. All I can say is read White Trash Warlock by David R. Slayton. And this is out from Blackstone, I believe. Yeah, Blackstone. Okay. Next is a sort of like a modern American classic that I don't probably need to say a whole lot about, and that's Marilynne Robinson's Home. I read this for my Bicoastal Book Club, and let me tell you, it was definitely one of the best conversations we've ever had, and one of the most divisive books that we've read. So this is the story of a family, the Boughton family. At the start, and let me just say this. This is the book that came after Gilead. So if you read Gilead by Marilynne Robinson, this is book 2 in that quartet. In this, we sort of get to see what happened in Gilead from the other side, from the Boughton family side. So we have the sister, who is Grace, I believe. Glory. She has come home. A relationship has gone sour, and she has come home to live with her father. Her father is getting older and having issues sort of taking care of himself. Her mother has already passed. And she comes home, and then all of a sudden her brother Jack, who has been sort of MIA for 20 years, shows up. Jack comes with his own baggage. Jack has a lot of history in the town as being sort of a rapscallion and people just not really trusting him. But he is so the apple of his father's eye. His father just has always had such high hopes for him. And this is about the relationships of those 3 people, as Jack deals with his history, as Glory deals with hers, and as Reverend Boughton tries to figure out in his mind what went wrong. And he always sort of wants to assume the blame, but maybe he doesn't really actually have a good grasp on what is really the issue at hand here. And Ames, who is Reverend Boughton's best friend, is another preacher. He is the main character of Gilead. He and his son and his wife are sort of periphery characters in this, but all of that dynamic in this tiny town of this guy coming back after 20 years being gone, the reputation, what happened. Jack is far from perfect. There's a lot of sort of animosity towards things that he had done in the past, but he's coming from a world where he's just left something that is really important to him, but he can't figure how to articulate that to his father, to his sister, and then he's trying to sort of make amends, but he doesn't know how to do that either. It's so good. It is so good. I did no justice to this book, but I highly recommend it. I absolutely loved it. It is dense. The language is very poetic. Not a lot happens, but that's sort of my thing. But I absolutely thought it was brilliant. So that's Home by Marilynne Robinson. And of course that is, and the whole series is out from Picador, and it is beautiful if you get them all together. Last but not least is a sort of dystopian sci-fi novella from Tor, and that is The Past is Read by Catherynne M. Valente. And this was just a lot of fun. So the main character of this is Tetley. So the world has basically been covered in water. we don't take very good care of our planet. Something is going to happen, and our generations after us are going to have to deal with the repercussions. In this novella, a giant, huge sort of continent of trash is floating, and Tetley lives in a portion of that. And there's like even different cities within the trash cities. She lives in the candle city. There's like a technology city. There's like a one for prescriptions, and it's very, very clever. But really at the sort of the center of this is that everyone is waiting for sort of this return to dry land, and there's like this hope that it's going to happen. Tetley does something and sort of becomes the the person in the country that no one wants to deal with. They're basically allowed to treat her really, really poorly, and she sort of has to take it. But at the same time, she's a very strong, independent woman trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life. And the book is very slim, but goes through these arcs of just emotion as, you know, she has to find her name. She has to find out who she is. Then she makes decisions, and certain decisions aren't taken well. And then she wants a future, and other things happen. And I'm not going to spoil it for you. But if you like dystopian fiction, if you like strong female leads that are not perfect but are hugely lovable, if you like books that sort of deal with sort of these topics like climate change, society, bias, and all of that sort of stuff, it all comes together so well in so few pages here. I really hope that Catherynne Valente is writing a sequel to this. I believe if I read correctly, I believe this was the first book she wrote after having her child. Don't quote me on that. I read that somewhere. It's stuck in my craw, but it could be wrong, but that's what I remember. I really, really liked it. So that's The Past is Read by Catherynne Valente, out from Tor Books. Okay. I didn't expect this video to go this long, but I had a lot to say today. So this is the stack of the books that I read in the month of August. I hope every single one of them winds up on your TBR. I really do. As always, if you are a return subscriber, I could not do this without you. Thank you so very, very much. If you are new to my channel, I really, really hope that you come back for more and you subscribe and hit that little bell button. And as always, I encourage you to read globally, shop locally, and until next time, I wish you happy reading. Bye, everyone.